All right, welcome to lesson 7 of unit 2. We are working this lesson on what they are calling solving equations with unspecified constants. That's also known as rearranging formulas, or sometimes referred to as solving literal equations. So lots of different names for this, but the concept is just using the skills that you know how to with solving equations to solve for specific variables in a problem. So starting out, let's look at exercise 1. You can see that it wants you to solve each of these problems for the value of x. That's what we're looking for. So the first thing when you're solving equations is always just whatever they tell you to solve for. It's a good idea to circle that just so you kind of hone in on exactly what am I supposed to be isolating or getting by itself, and then go through the steps that you know for solving equations. So I'm going to go ahead and solve A just as a review, and then we'll look at B. Okay, so now you can see that exercise A is done. We use the operations of subtraction and division to isolate the variable x to get the value of 6. So now let's look at B, where we don't have actual numbers, but we're still trying to solve for x. So we need to get x all by itself. So x is being multiplied times A, and B is being added to it. Even though we don't have actual values for those, we can still apply these same concepts and properties. The first thing I'm going to do is subtract B to get AX by itself. Of course, we can't actually subtract B and C, so just write C minus B. And then I'm still trying to get X all by itself, so I need to get rid of A. A being attached to X means multiplication, so we're going to divide by A. So our final result solved for x is that x is equal to c minus b all divided by a. All right, so in exercise 2, we're still solving for the letter x. It says leave your answers in terms of the constants a, b, c, and d. Still solving for x in both of these. So again, exercise A is a review of a basic equation. Let me go ahead and solve that just to review those steps, and then we'll look at B. Okay, so review the steps that were solved here for exercise 2A. We added 7 to get that out of the way, and then to clear out dividing by 2, we multiply by 2. And finally, to get rid of plus 5, we subtract 5 to get x equals 15. Those same steps can be applied even when we don't have actual numerical values. So again, on part B, we are solving for x. We're going to do that by getting rid of A, B, and C in the appropriate order. So since C is being subtracted, we're going to add C to both sides. That's going to give us x plus A. I've got kids walking in as I'm recording this. Over B equals D plus C. Still need to get rid of the B and the A. So now we're going to multiply everything by B, leaving us with x plus A equals. I'm going to move that B to the front to show distributive property. And then finally, we need to subtract A. So when you subtract A, you get x equals B times D plus C minus A. Okay, so for exercise 3, you're going to solve this equation. I want you to try this one on your own. Notice that you've got distributive property on this one, and remember that there are 2 different ways you can deal with distributive property when it comes to solving. You could either go ahead and distribute, or you could do the opposite of distributing, which would be to divide by 2. If you choose to divide by 2 first, be careful about this plus k, and remember that it would also get divided by 2 if that's the option that you go for. Try number 3 on your own. Pause the video now and do that, and then you can check against the answer key when you're finished. Okay, exercise 4 gets into actually doing what we said earlier about rearranging a formula to solve for a quantity of interest. This is actually the name of the standard that we're doing here. So on exercise 4, they've given you the formula for perimeter of a rectangle. So 2W refers to the fact that there are 2 widths, and 2L refers to the fact that there are 2 lengths. So they want you to rearrange the formula so that it is solved for W, meaning get W by itself. So the way we would do that is to move everything that's not W. Obviously, W has a 2 attached to it. That'll be the last thing we get rid of. So first you're going to subtract 2L. And that's going to give you P minus 2L equals 2W. And so then your final step would be to divide by 2. So this is your new formula when solved for W. You're going to move on to part B using that P minus 2L divided by 2 to solve the information that's given here and get the width of that rectangle. All right, so the exercise 5 and exercise 6 deal with this one last complication that's usually challenging for students to address when it comes to solving for a variable. So you're given this equation, ax plus b equals cx plus d. We're going to solve this equation for x. And then obviously the first one is like we did earlier, where it's a basic equation that you're used to, and then we're going to apply those same steps to the literal equation over here. So let me go ahead and solve A and review those steps. All right, so looking at the steps that were used to solve A, you have to get the x's that are on the two different sides of the equal sign combined together. So I did that by subtracting 5x. Then, of course, you need to move the constant to the other side. So I subtracted 1. That gives us 3x equals 21. And then the last step is to get rid of that coefficient. So divide by 3 and x equals 7. Those same steps and that same process can be applied to solve for x, even when we don't have any numerical values. So here you're going to subtract cx to take it over to ax. Both of those have an x attached to them. This is where it can be tricky. The cx is gone. We cannot combine a and c. So we're going to write that as ax minus cx, and we'll simplify that in just a moment. And then plus b equals d. Now let's go ahead and get rid of b and get it out of the way. So we've got ax minus cx equals, those b's cancel, d minus b. But we still need to get rid of a and c. Since both of them are being multiplied by x, we can actually use the distributive property to rewrite that as x times a minus c. So what I just did there is I factored out the common factor of x and put it on the outside to simplify that to just a minus c there in the parentheses. Still equals to d minus b. And since this is multiplication and I'm trying to get x all by itself, my final step is going to be to divide both sides by a minus c. So x is equal to d minus b over a minus c. That's probably the most complicated one that you're going to encounter in this lesson. So just keep in mind that the distributive property and factoring out that variable you're solving for is definitely an option when you're trying to combine your terms. Go ahead and